Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Deviant Philosophers Podcast. I am your host, Gene Overcash. And while the majority of the episodes on this program will feature guests with whom conversations will be philosophically based while discussing a variety of topics, one of the things I wish to do solo on this program is to objectively examine controversial issues that have the tendency to divide communities. And the topic in which I want to discuss today is medical cannabis. And while the episode could certainly focus on the national debate surrounding medical cannabis, I instead intend to zoom in from the macro and focus on the micro, specifically medical cannabis within my home state of North Carolina. Now, a little background information. Medical cannabis is not something new within the United States. In 1996, California became the first state to legalize medical cannabis, and since 1996, many more states have legalized medical cannabis, and as of right now, 28 states allow for the use of medical cannabis for patients with qualifying medical conditions. And the plant's ability to treat a variety of medical conditions has proven quite effective, and many people are now able to seek safe relief from their medical conditions without the risk of harmful side effects that accompany many pharmaceutical drugs. And the numbers tend to speak for themselves in regards to the overall safety of cannabis use. For in 2016, over 17,000 people met their demise due to prescription painkiller abuse, while deaths attributed directly to cannabis use was zero. Now, this understanding and widespread exposure to the plant has led to conversations surrounding cannabis as no longer being viewed as a fringe topic in many places. In places such as North Carolina, however, discussing cannabis openly is still viewed as taboo, and this is due to the fact that many people's knowledge of the plant stems from culturally conditioned preconceived notions and not objective fact. Despite this, for the past 9 years, new legislature has been introduced each year with hopes of reforming North Carolina's medical cannabis laws. 2015 resulted in the most progress thus far through the legalization of CBD oil. Now, for 2017, representatives have introduced House Bill 185, which, if successful in passage, would legalize medical cannabis in its entirety. And it's the momentum from the progress made in 2015 that gives many people an optimistic view of House Bill 185 being made into a law. And in fact, a poll conducted in 2016 revealed that support for medical cannabis within North Carolina is at an all-time high, with 74% of the state's population being in favor of allowing for the use of medical cannabis. Now, despite these numbers pointing towards an overwhelming majority of the state's population supporting cannabis law reform, there is still strong opposition to the passage of any sort of medical cannabis law. The strongest opposition stems from an organization within the state called the Christian Action League of North Carolina. And the organization released an article to their website on March 16th titled "Back Again, a Proposal for the Legalization of Medical Marijuana." And within that article, the organization's executive director, Dr. Mark Creech, had the following to say: "I don't care how many polls say the public supports medical marijuana. The ultimate poll is the one at the ballot box, when the public elects lawmakers and the way they stand on any given issue." Now, my interpretation of this statement leads me to believe that Dr. Mark Creech holds a fairly inaccurate view in regards to an elected representative's relationships and obligations they hold to their constituents. And this statement simply does not reflect how things work in a healthy democratic society. However, Dr. Mark Creech seems to understand this, for in a video released on January 25th to the organization's website, in which he is encouraging action to be taken against any effort to repeal House Bill 2, he has the following to say, and I quote, "In a representative republic as our own, we can't just leave everything up to our public officials and hope it all works out all right," end quote. And he goes on to encourage citizen involvement in the political process, regarding it as being imperative. Now, these two contradicting statements were made less than 2 months apart, and the mentality behind the lack of concern for contradicting oneself in that short of a time period does boggle the mind a bit, although it does enlighten an observer from the outside looking in as to the agenda at play and how this organization tries to influence the political activity of individuals that look to the Christian Action League for political guidance. Now, returning to the article posted to the organization's website, it goes on to speculate that there is no true therapeutic or medical properties that should be attributed to the cannabis plant, and that any attempt to allow individuals access to the plant would have dire consequences. Now, these speculative claims are made despite the fact that various scientific studies have revealed the profound medical properties the cannabis plant possesses, as well as the fact that medical cannabis has been available to patients in California for over 20 years with no dire consequences resulting from its availability. Now, the opposition's stance seems to be based off of unfounded ethical concerns stemming from an obscure perception of reality, and it is not an opposition based off of any form of observable fact. Again, this is simply opposition to medical cannabis from within the state of North Carolina. However, I feel it reflects opposition on a national level, with the divide on the issue stemming from a lack of understanding. For if the true nature of the cannabis plant is understood, it is difficult to take these outlandish claims of cannabis as being a harmful plant seriously. So, I extend a formal invitation to Dr. Mark Creech to have a sit-down conversation within which we can discuss the implications of allowing medical cannabis in the state of North Carolina and the true reasons as to why the Christian Action League has consistently exercised strong opposition to the reform of North Carolina's cannabis laws. And I do not wish to debate false claims or argue over the matter. I simply wish to have a constructive conversation within which common ground may be found and forward progress for the collective good of the state may be made. So, if you happen to be in the dark in understanding the characteristics of the cannabis plant, its many uses, and its long history of human use, I encourage you to do some objective research on the plant. A simple Google search will yield answers to any questions that you have regarding its medical uses and overall safety. I encourage everyone to think for themselves and to gain their knowledge on the issue through personal objective examination, and only hold true, factual claims that you have read with your own two eyes. So, that does it for this episode of the Deviant Philosophers podcast. I thank you for tuning in, and until next time, stay humble, but question everything.